SEO now.
SEO now, SEO now.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to Stories That Scale. This is the podcasting segment on our YouTube channel. I'm a younger business owner, and I've met a lot of great people along the way, so we interview them and give them an opportunity to give you guys and myself tips on how to do better at owning my own business. Maybe we make a few less mistakes. Today, we have Zach with SEONOW. Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be here.
How are you today?
You know, I'm above dirt, so that's always that's always
a good start, right?
It's a good start. A little chilly out today. That the whole weather swing that we have here in Nashville, it just kind of goes from like 80 degrees to blistering cold just kind of overnight, and today was that day. So, but yeah, I think beyond the blistering cold, I'd say it's been a positive week actually. It's been super busy, and yeah, we got just a lot of irons in the fire at the moment. So.
Well, good. Well, we're going to jump right into some of those irons right now.
Cool.
But I think first and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit about SEO.
Sure.
Sometimes I think a lot of people feel like SEO is the mythical unicorn that they can't grab onto, whether they know what it is and they're trying to rank better themselves.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're a newer business owner and you don't really mess around with all the tech side. You just really want to deliver your service or products to people.
Yeah.
What is SEO? What is the main thing that your company does?
Yeah, so search engine optimization is the ability for your company to rank organically in a listing. So for instance, let's say I'm looking at plumber near me, right? Let's say I need a plumbing service. And so normally what you'll see when you type that in at the very top, you'll see sponsored links like Google Guarantee, but you'll see the name of the business and it says sponsored. Below it, you might see another sponsored link, that's Google AdWords. And then right below it, you're going to start seeing things like the Google Map Pack. You're going to see what we like to call the blue links right below the Map Pack that name local companies as well.
Okay.
And so basically, Google's objective, as I understand it, is to... Allegedly, is to provide the most relevant and credible business based off of that query.
Okay.
So our job in particular is making sure that we are putting together all the on-page, off-page nuances that you need to help Google better understand your brand, where you service, hours of operation. It's kind of it's an endless list. But to answer your question, that's what SEO really is you ranking naturally on Google.
Okay. Because I think a lot of us are hopeful whenever we start a business that we have this cool thing, product, or whatever it might be. We throw up our website with our dope logo, and we think people are just going to find us and see, our stuff like immediately.
Yeah.
But I don't think the process is as easy as everyone would hope it to be.
Sure.
And to be fair to search engines, not just Google, but all of them, like they do a lot of filtering because there's a lot of businesses that are dead or no longer in existence, but the website's still out there.
Absolutely.
It might be run out of somebody's home, and it could be sketchy. Who knows what you might find. And so Google's trying to protect that resource.
Right.
But you guys help connect plumber down the street with guy in neighborhood that needs plumber now.
That's a boy. I don't think I could have said that actually any better. That's correct. And to your point, we get this a lot. People are like, I started the website and but everyone else is ranking, and that other plumber that you just named who's ranking, he's terrible and I'm great, right? And Google can't delineate between like the greatness of this one plumber versus the next, right? So
tries to based upon reviews maybe sometimes, but
you have part of that for sure, especially at a local level, and they've actually incorporated that much more here in the last year and some change. But it's ranking on Google. The best way I describe it to clients is it's like building a FICO score with Google.
Okay.
So imagine that you're 16 years old and you go walking into a bank and you're like, I want to buy a Ferrari.
Right.
They're like, well, what collateral do you have? What's your credit score?
What's your credit score?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way I describe it is it's building trust and and doing it in what we call a white hat fashion, meaning that you do it by the guidelines. There's people who will try to cheat and manipulate Google, and sometimes they win. They do. I mean, like, but you'll never win in the long run. And so that's kind of always been like our focus is to win by doing the right things.
Okay.
So
there's kind of two parts to this question. So we're going to shift gears a little bit.
sure.
Okay. So we're going to go back in time, and I want to hear. So first, how did you get into this business? How did you start your business? And then the second thing is, I want you to tell the good people what other services that SEO Now offers.
Yeah, certainly. So this was born out of me making a very poor business decision. This is circa, oh boy, what is it? I believe it was 2007.
Okay.
So I opened a business in 2007 because, that's a good thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, really smart.
Right before market crash. No big deal.
Well, yeah. So I had a formal wear shop. Okay.
That's right. You told me about this at one point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me more.
Yeah. So anyway, I remember going to the bank and I had written this business plan. I'd read all these books and I was just dead certain that the bank was going to be like, yeah, this makes sense, So come to find out, nobody would lend me money at all. And kind of grew up with very little means, and that's kind of an understatement. But I was able to secure just enough money to cover the lease for the year, and I found a local distributor. The one thing I didn't write into that business plan was I gave away all my money to start it.
Okay.
And so I'm like living inside of this business.
Right.
7 days a week.
It's everything.
12 hours. I mean, there had a back room in it where there were some days where I would just go back there and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And just start the next day over in the shop. It was wild. I did not put that in my business plan.
Okay. Things you can't prepare for, right?
Yeah. And this is definitely part of the growing process. Anyway, so one day I am flat out of money. And I had started my business in the slow season on purpose because I wanted to get my toes wet before busy season.
Okay.
So I'm standing outside. I'll be transparent here. I was smoking a cigarette, which I don't endorse smoking cigarettes. Don't do that, kids. I quit a long time ago. Such a Midwest thing. It's so weird. But I'm standing outside. I'm smoking a cigarette. And it was right around that time, Walmart had just come to our hometown.
Okay.
And my business was located in that Leave It to Beaverville, Main Street that you see in all the movies.
Yeah.
That's where my business was. And that used to be the A+ location.
Okay.
It's not at this point, right? And I'm looking at all these businesses down the road and I'm seeing that they're closed. And I'm just sitting there. I was like, how can I help them? But also too, how can I help me? I'm trying to solve
You're
this.
struggling with the same problem.
Yeah, the same problem. And as I'm smoking this cigarette, it was mildly cinematic, I think. I turn around and the only other true entity inside of this shop beyond dresses and tuxedos is my laptop.
Right.
And here I am. I'm sitting in front of the answer the entire time.
It's right there.
It's right in front of me.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh shit, I can use that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so how can I do it?
So it starts with the question, how can I accomplish this?
Right. And so, I start to do some research and I was like, search engine optimization, was one of the things. It was also social media marketing at the time because you could this is 2007. You could cheat everything.
Okay.
You could write structured data in the back end of a website where you just repeated a keyword over and over and over, and the viewer couldn't even see it. And if you ran a cheeseburger stand, I could type cheeseburger, but all in the backside, but you can't see it user side.
Okay.
And so Google's it says cheeseburger 80 million times. So,
right. They must make a lot of cheeseburgers.
Yeah. This is what they call keyword stuffing.
Right.
And then also too, social media marketing back then was you could buy these bots online. It was super sketch.
Yeah.
But one of my first marketing gigs was for a tanning salon, and it was basically the guy had bought into a franchise. The franchise went defunct like literally overnight. The lady like embezzled the money and like left the country. I don't know whatever happened to the end of that, but you had this older guy who needed to appeal to a younger audience. And I was like, oh, 2007, Facebook is Instagram and Twitter and, all those combined, right? That was the power of, social media back then.
Yeah.
And I remember like buying a bot and like I could set the parameters to be like, add every female over the age of 18 in Knox County, Ohio.
Right.
Click.
Because you want them to come in and buy your dresses and stuff,
and
right?
then all of a sudden, like, the very next day. Well, this was for another. This is my first marketing.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because he was just right up the road. But anyway, long story short, I looked like a rock star.
Yeah.
Because like all of a sudden he's got this Facebook page. He's got thousands of followers. He's like, how did you do that? And I was like, and that's when I realized I was like, digital marketing is something that from at that point I was in love with, and that's where the love affair really started. And so
if only it was so easy today, right?
It's yeah. I mean, like people could they could buy domains.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have something like phone.com. That's how people were like searching.
Yeah.
They're like, sometimes it wasn't even the search engine. It was just like phone.com.
Yeah.
It's got to exist, right?
I mean, I'm guilty. I've done that before too.
Yeah.
Like you just think of the industry that you're trying to get to and you just say something.com and there you are.
Look, still to this day, cars.com.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
that's a perfect example.
Yeah. Still to this day.
Okay.
So
that was your first campaign.
Yeah.
And then obviously the business has grown and developed into something a lot more complex.
Sure. Yeah.
So take me to the future.
Yeah. Fast forward some years later, I'd have to go look at the date. Good friend of mine calls me up and he's over at SEO.com.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, you're really solid at SEO. I was like, yeah, but I've just been, it's just more of a hobby and obsession, helping, small local businesses back where I came from. So I was like, okay, not a big to do. He's like, do you want to crack at it?
Yeah. I
was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, let's give it a run. So they brought me in initially for sales, which is, I was like, well, I'm not a salesperson, but sure, whatever.
I know you today. You're definitely a salesperson.
I don't feel that I am.
It's because you're not. We'll get more into that later.
Okay.
We'll get more into that later.
Yeah. I was like, I don't like salespeople to a certain degree. Like
that's fair. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have that feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I don't want someone. I don't. If the product or the service is good enough, it sells itself, right?
Sure.
So anyway, I go in there, and part of my selling strategy that I had to come up with is I started creating strategies for the clients. And so what would end up happening is I would present them with the strategy, like a real actual like timeline of deliverables. Because the one thing, like you said, like SEO is this magic unicorn, right?
Yeah.
So like, what's all these intangible things that you're doing that make it work? And then also too, like, what am I paying for?
Right.
That's always the big question.
That
right?
is the big question. Yeah.
I could do 10,000 things to your website and you could look at it and it would never change.
Right.
And so like, if you don't understand that, then it's like, you don't know what you're paying for. So anyway, I started to put together strategies, competitive analysis that made sense. And it started to get into this rhythm of where the clients or the potential clients would be like, yeah, we'll come on, but it is contingent upon you being part of the campaign.
Okay.
So that's why I start working my way up the corporate ladder over at SEO.com. I end up making it to an executive level. So I ended up being the VP of digital strategy, which is a cool job. We were working with we worked with so many killer brands there.
Yeah.
And it introduced me to enterprise level SEO and some things that were really challenging. And also where they were located at the time in Utah, it's kind of like they call it the Silicon Slopes, and so it's like Silicon Valley, but with the slopes and the mountains out there.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the digital marketers go.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even when you're not at work, if you're out and about, like you'll end up running into people who are in your space.
Okay.
So so I'm at SEO.com for some years. Great learning experience, but
What made you decide to branch out and do your own thing?
the larger agencies, and it's not SEO.com. I'm not calling those guys out at all.
Okay.
But this is, I think it's just across the board with larger agencies. If you're not an enterprise level client, you're not getting red carpet treatment.
Okay.
And I would position myself to think, how would this Zach Durbin at SEO.com help the Zach Durbin once upon a time that had the formal wear shop?
Gotcha.
Should he be treated differently than someone who spends $25,000 a month? And the reality of it is that's what was happening.
Sure.
I'm a firm advocate of small to medium sized business. It runs this country, and so I didn't feel like it was being serviced as well as it could be.
Yeah.
And so it kind of got to a point where I was like, I think I can do this better.
Okay.
And without that particular corporate structure. So I left on good terms. You know,
Yeah.
I interact still to this day with many former members of SEO.com.
Yeah.
Including my superiors, you know,
Okay.
all on good terms. And I have nothing but good things to say about them. So I left, and that was scary. It was
I imagine it would be.
terrifying. And, you know, I ended up taking equity out of my house to start it.
Mm-hmm.
And, which is cool. Put some real skin in the game when you're like, this either succeeds or you're homeless.
Every entrepreneur that I've run into, pretty much ever, I mean, unless they've been very fortunate, has to learn how to understand and mitigate risk.
Yeah.
Risk just becomes a part of the game.
Yep.
But taking out an equity loan on your home, that's definitely saying something.
Yeah. It was, it will get you up early in the morning. It'll make sure that you work yourself to death because you
nothing like an amazing motivator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like I don't want to be homeless, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, and I'd worked so hard. I mean, at the time I had bought a house in Nashville.
Yeah.
And that's a chore by itself.
Yeah.
Right. And, what I had in the house, I was like, oh man, if I ever lost this, I'm really up the river without a paddle.
Yeah.
Things fell into place. I'm just going to be honest with you. I wish I could tell you some magical story about how I did something special. But the work started to come to me. When people heard that I hit the free agency market, they're like, oh, hey, can we use you for SEO service?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So I was kind of like, all right, well, this is gaining some traction.
So you're the reason a lot of companies have a non-compete whenever they leave their company.
Oh, I didn't steal anything.
Not that you're stealing it
Yeah,
from
yeah,
them,
I was going
but,
to say,
you know,
I was like,
customers have experiences with you.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Zach is I'm like that with many businesses.
Right.
Like you deal with a certain person like on a daily basis and they solve your problem.
Yeah.
It's like you trust them and you want to, want to be on their team.
It was more actually of a referral of people that I had worked with over the years.
Oh, that's fantastic. Nothing beats referrals.
Yeah. So like what happened is they're like, oh, yeah, we worked with this guy once upon a time.
Yeah.
And then they, would find that I didn't work there anymore.
Okay.
And then they're like, and because of those clients, I mean, I'm pretty sure I signed some sort of agreement with them. You know what I mean? So I wasn't trying to poach their guys. So, it was like starting fresh.
It did not mean that he was poaching people. So we will say that very clearly.
Yeah.
So sorry I made it sound that way.
Yeah, no, it's cool. But it does, that happens a lot in the digital marketing space. That's why I want to be super clear on that. But
I'm just over here asking questions.
Yeah, just interviewing, man. But yeah, so couple started to fall into my lap, and I was like, okay. I was like,
you can breathe.
I can pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I can pay the bills. It's where it started. And so I was like, what would I call this? What would I call this company?
Okay.
And I was like, knowing how search engines work, I knew it had to be something SEO related.
Of course.
Because it's niche-y.
It's got to be in the name.
And so it had to be in the name. And so didn't have a lot of money at the time, and I couldn't afford like a .com. So I settled for what was hip at the time for all the tech companies. I had a .io.
Yeah.
And I found a 6-letter .io.
Yeah.
Or, and I was like, SEO now. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's 6.
That's 6?
Yeah, that's 6.
Had to double check.
And it's symmetrical.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's super symmetrical.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that was important to me, but from a branding standpoint,
I think everybody who's like picking a brand gets hooked on like the things that they need to have in their
Yeah,
logo.
yeah, it had to
that
be
just
symmetrical.
make it make sense. That makes it work.
Yeah. And I thought about it in retrospect, I laughed because I was like, now implies that like it's instantaneous, right? And
Yeah.
organic is anything but, right?
That's fair. I like that.
Yeah, it's true. And also, when we go, and this goes, segments into what you were going to ask me about, like the other departments.
Yeah. So what else do you guys do?
Yeah. So
Let me ask it.
Yeah. So there it is. So what was interesting is I'm just like, oh, it's SEO.
Yeah.
But SEO has so many different components. It works well. Like it oftentimes works in conjunction with web development,
Yes.
social media marketing. Not so much with Google AdWords, but with content writers and like there's all these other external factors that help your SEO.
Yeah.
And so I was like, so now I'm like, oh, we're SEO now. And they're like, oh, cool. Do you know a company that makes websites? I'm like, we do. So we had to start adding in those departments.
Now,
one
how
by
did that start? Did someone ask you if you make websites, or did someone say,
Yeah.
"Do you know someone?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "Well, we can't let this money slip away."
Well,
of course, we make websites.
it was obvious that it was money left on the table.
Yeah.
And so I went scampering because like I can build at that time and still today, I can still build you a basic website.
Sure.
But am I a developer?
No.
And so, cool thing about working out in the Silicon Slopes is not just over at SEO.com, but I mean, there's talent abroad. It was everywhere.
Is that all over the place?
Yeah. And so as people would hit the free agency market,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, they're so talented in that department.
Yeah.
I'll see if they want to work with us. And, give them a call and see if, SEO is the brand SEO Now is the brand they want to work with. And
Yeah.
That's how it really came to pass.
Now,
And it was
about how many people do you have on your team now?
cool. 15.
So you have 15 people
Yeah.
on your staff.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's not the number. It's who those people are.
Oh, I definitely think that the chemistry makes up a huge piece of what makes SEO Now work.
Oh yeah.
But I think from the business owner side, we've had one extra employee.
Yeah.
But that's a huge dream. I love this idea that they can have a good place to work, that they could have a good place to come and work.
Yeah.
And they can make a living that supports their families.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I would say that at that particular point in time, we didn't have an office. Everyone's working remotely.
Yeah.
And still to this day, we have an office down on 5th and Union.
Yeah.
And everything else. But we've always kept our overhead super slim.
Yeah.
Why would I have everybody coming into the office and having these huge offices? This is one of the things that drives the cost in SEO. Is you go to these agencies and you walk in and they have a barista and a wine bar and a buffet,
Right.
And you're like, oh my God, it's so pretty. And it's like, yeah, but somebody has to pay for that.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that we focused on was find the best talent in each of the departments and have this really low overhead so you could deliver incredible service at an affordable cost. It made it to where that small business that, once upon a time was mine in '07,
Yeah.
that formal wear business, they could probably swing it. They
Yeah.
get one sale and they actually have a team that cares.
Right.
That's I think the biggest component. Somebody asked me a long time ago, they're like, well, what's the difference between you and they named some other big agency? And I was like, I'll lose sleep when you don't get rankings. I'll lose sleep if you're not doing well because I take it personally.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but it's been great. of those 15 people, and this is of note,
That work for you.
we don't employ salespeople.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a lot of businesses are moving to that. Whenever we bring people on staff, we train them
Yeah.
to sell the videos because everybody comes in contact with people.
Yeah.
And so in our methodology for salesmanship, it comes from a particular book that I've mentioned to you, but it also comes from knowing you. So that's a really great segue of like you not being able to sleep when people don't rank. It's one of the qualities I've admired about you most over the time that we've gotten to know each other.
Appreciate that.
And I think it's what makes you a great salesman because it's almost like reverse selling.
I guess, yeah.
So and that's within the ideology that I follow for selling, because I think whenever a lot of people start their business, they do this mistake, and I think it's most people. They talk to every single person who has a set of ears and a brain about their business and how great it is and how excited they are about it, because it's all you can think about. It's what you're living night and day, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then over time you mature a little bit, and that's the story for me, where I started to just ask better questions.
Sure.
And then see if there's a problem that my business can solve.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely talked people into a sale, and I did a really good job for that business, but they didn't necessarily need what I offered. And so at the end of the day, they weren't super happy with me.
Right.
Even though I successfully closed the sale. And I didn't want to live that life and do that over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had tons of conversations about potential clients that you might work with, but you're not sure you're the best fit for them. So I should be asking a question, but I'm just giving a long monologue about how great you are.
No, it's good.
And I'll keep it going, baby.
Let's flow. Let's go.
So all that to say is that's one of the things that has been really inspirational to me, where I've even had a client or a potential client come to me and say, hey, I would like a video.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think through, and it's my landscaper, because he used to work for a company that we do a lot of video work for.
Right.
And he's seen some of the stuff and he thought it was great. And I asked him, I said, hey man, why do you think you need a video? I did the Zach, like, what are you going to use this video for? What's the plan?
Yeah.
Do we have an ultimate goal for this video? And he's like, well, I just think it would be nice to have. And I'm like, he doesn't have a website.
Yep.
He doesn't have a commercial location.
Yep.
He doesn't have any ad spend. So we're not going to be using this video to push to other people, so that way he gets more business.
Right.
And a video, whenever you bring out a video production team for your business, it's not a cheap expense.
Yeah.
And I would really hate to do this thing that looks beautiful and is wonderful, but didn't bring him any more sales or any other benefit.
Yeah.
And so I actually ended up, because of you teaching me this by just doing it.
Yeah.
I ended up kind of talking him out of the video.
Yeah.
Because I said, hey, come back to me if you have a plan.
Right.
And we can talk more about that. And it just kind of fizzled out. And he's still my landscaper. And our relationship is still great. Yeah. And I'm still here for him. If he wants to upscale his business and grow it, then we can talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can put like a pin on how you became that person that does that. But could you try?
Yeah, sure. Give it a shot, I guess. I mean, it's just ethics, like just
Sure.
simple ethics. Like it's the simplest math. If somebody comes to you and they're like, "Hey, I want to use your service,"
Yeah.
and you unequivocally know that no matter what I do for your business, that it's not going to move the needle for their business, you shouldn't do it.
Sure.
I mean, it blows my mind, and I've seen it where, and I tell everybody this when they come to us, that because they're normally shopping, as they should be.
Yeah.
But if I come across clients, whether it might be a budget issue or a business structure issue, I make sure that I tell them, I'm like, if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to sell beauty products, okay, very competitive, and I have $100 a month.
Yeah.
I'd be like, don't do SEO. SEO's not for you.
Yeah.
I'm like, but here's what will happen today if you're making calls to some agencies. Somebody is going to tell you that they can move the needle for that money.
Right.
And they're going to end up burning that cash.
Okay.
And that's kind of been that's not kind of been, that is why we do not have salespeople. We start with quantifiable data.
Okay.
Something that, so if someone comes to us, we get through a discovery call and we're like, okay, this is a service that they could get results from. Then the next phase is, and a lot of people think that this is backwards in the industry, but I think it's the only way to do it, is we go in and for free.
Okay.
And we'll actually do a true blue audit. We don't put them into some little system and push a button and kick out a report. We actually do a thorough, on-site evaluation, and then depending on how they're going to rank, we look at where they're ranking at.
Okay.
I bet in 2024 that we have turned away this is an estimate, about 35%
I would have guessed even higher.
Yeah, of clients just for SEO.
Yeah.
We had a pest control company out of Franklin. They called us. They had like 3 locations.
Yeah, competitive field. There's a lot of pest control companies.
Exactly. And this is a brand that they had built on their own shoulders. Family owned business.
Yeah.
And so they called me up, and I think it's funny, they'll watch Shark Tank and someone says SEO and they're like, that's what we need, because Mark Cuban keeps saying it, And so anyway, they call me up and they're like, hey, we have 3 locations we want to rank.
Yeah.
I said, okay, cool. And so we go in, we do an audit, and it's 3 locations. So it's triple the work.
Okay.
And I get it back.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gave them a call and I was like, you're ranking in about 90% of the space that you should be ranking in.
So they're already doing really well.
I said, you're already doing well. They're like,
yeah.
Oh, I am? I'm like, yeah, you're doing great. Google did its job. It found the best.
Yeah.
Because that does happen too, by the way. It's not like every person has to pay to get there. Like Google, it's a very literate creature. It's super smart.
Yeah. It's almost like building credit, but you didn't, because your parents set you up for it or something like that.
Yeah.
And you didn't know that you had a credit score at all.
Yeah.
And like you walk out and you go, oh, that's my credit score. Well, that's incredible. I'll take it.
Yeah. So for a lot of those businesses, they had been around for a long time. They had lots of good reviews. They had good trust signals. I won't get into all the geek stuff that happened, but the long short is that, so she's like, well, now what? And I said, okay. I said, there's other mediums of marketing that you can do.
Right.
I named what those were. I'm like, you could do Google Guaranteed Program. You could do Google AdWords. Social media for pest control is probably not a play. You're not.
I could make that thing pop.
You could.
We can make that thing awesome.
You make everything look good. But if you're thinking about if you're flipping through your reels and you're like, oh, look how well they did that pest control.
Yeah, it's got to be humorous. It's got to be people that you find likable. Like that's how you would.
Right.
That's how I would go about advising a group like that, because you can't just go, we can make sexy videos out of pest control,
right?
But nobody's like, yeah, that got me. You know?
But by the way, if and you know who you are, company, if you need that video done, come see your boy.
Oh yeah, we'll hook you up.
Yeah.
But we'll make sure we have a plan.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what happens a lot of times is people call in and they're like, so you're not going to try to sell me on that? I'm like, why would I? Because, and this is how, this is Nashville.
Yeah.
It's the tiny big town. You will run into that person again.
Oh, absolutely.
You will have to look them in the face at some point.
I haven't heard that description before, and that's so accurate.
Yeah, you will, and even if you didn't, it's crazy. And the sales tactics for a lot of these SEO companies is wild.
Yeah.
I use the broken car analogy.
Okay.
So imagine going to the mechanic. Okay. You got a weird rattling sound in your car.
Guilty. I got that going on right now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I need to take it in.
Okay.
But keep going.
I was going to say, I got a guy.
You got a guy.
I got a guy. So anyway, but imagine that you have a car, it's got this weird rattling sound, and you take it to the mechanic, and the mechanic listens to it for 2 seconds, and he goes, that's $10,000. How do you know?
How do you know?
Maybe it's a loose part that you just need to wrench it.
Right.
Or maybe it's your transmission going out.
Yeah.
And it's, $15,000 or whatever it is.
Right.
Right. So you have these people who will call these agencies
Mm-hmm.
and they'll just arbitrarily give them a price.
Mm.
Isn't that crazy? Like, how do you know whether or not like that $500 package is going to be enough to move the needle for what you do in an area?
Yeah.
Here's an example.
Okay.
I don't remember how this came across my desk, but this is over at the SEO.com days. There's a guy who called in and he's like, I've been doing SEO for, I forget what it was. I think it was like 3 years.
Okay.
And he's like, I pay $500 a month. And I was like, okay. I was like, so what do you do again? He's like, I'm a plumber.
Uh-huh.
I was like, where are you a plumber at? And he goes, New York City. And I just kind of paused for a second and I was like, oh no. You don't know how to tell somebody the news. Like that
Right.
$500 wasn't going to move the needle
Not there.
for a plumber. Now, if I said I'm putting $500 a month to rank on the east side of Nashville,
Right.
plausible.
Yeah.
But so there,
Location matters in that scenario.
Exactly.
Versus 600,000 people in an inner city versus millions and millions. Because how many of those millions own their own business?
right, and he had bought this prepackaged, service, and it gets handed off to some novice SEOer. It goes on their books. They charge them every month. Point is that this plumber, good hardworking guy,
Yeah.
that's $18,000 that he could have put somewhere, anywhere, whether back in his pocket or back into the business, into something that would have benefited his business.
Yeah.
So, I always tell people the plumber story.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them
We do
to.
talk about plumbers a lot when we talk about SEO.
It's weird.
It is kind of funny.
It is. I don't know why I go to plumbers.
Yeah.
I really don't know why I go to plumbers every time.
It was the first thing we talked about when we talked about shooting your commercial. That was the first pitch that we talked about was plumber A needs to discover people who need him within their neighborhood.
Yeah. I think I do it because it's one of those industries that's become insanely competitive. Anything in the home service realm,
Sure.
really,
Yeah.
because now it's not just and you run up against this all the time. It's not just these established businesses. I could go down the street
Yeah.
and go to Walmart, buy a tool bag, and start my own construction company the next day. Put up my little website, put up my little Google business profile, and all of a sudden I'm a business and I'm your competitor in the backyard.
Yeah.
But they're terrible, right? And it's the same thing. We were talking about this with you, like I got a cousin who's got a camera.
Yeah, in the
He
video
can-
business, our biggest competitor is a friend or relative that happens to also own a camera.
Yeah.
And very very understandably, if that's your budget and that's what that's what you need, then that's a great option for you.
Yeah.
The only part where it's frustrating is when you call a professional.
Yeah.
And you tell them that they can do it for less than a quarter of the price that you're charging. And I go, well, how am I supposed to compete with your relative? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right, right.
Like,
And also you have to see them at Thanksgiving, right? So
Yeah, I got to pay contractors. I got to pay other people to send them out. I've
Right.
got to, it's a time investment and like it costs. And when you have costs and overhead and you have a business and you've invested thousands and thousands of dollars on camera equipment.
Yeah.
Correct. Your friend is going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, we're gonna help you problem solve and do more than just sit behind the camera.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that you guys do at SEO. The fact that you guys care so much is, I really identified with that early on, and I got to film testimonials for
Yeah, that
your
was
business.
cool. That was so much fun.
And you guys ran those as ads on social media, and
They did great. by the way.
one of the
Thank you.
greatest things that you did, and was you had the idea of like, do you think that we could put something together for them because we're going to go and film at their location, at their business.
Yeah.
Do you think you could put together something for them and send it to them as a gift?
Yeah.
And I was like, this makes, so much sense. The value proposition, that just being a good friend, I am friends with quite a few of the clients that we have.
Yeah.
And that relationship is kind of scary sometimes because, they're putting a lot of money on the line and they're hoping that you solve these problems for them. And you
Yeah.
definitely don't want to stir up that friendship or cause problems.
Yeah.
But like doing those things, investing in the network
Yeah.
more than you're investing in the networking meetings
Yeah.
is huge.
Yeah. I think part of it too is if they're successful, then
That's huge. Yeah.
I mean, like if you're
Yeah.
giving them, so we have this internal saying, happy people get happy results.
Yeah.
And so we have a really killer crew, the best people. I can't even possibly tell you how grateful I am to have them in my life and as part of my business. And we treat clients like their family, like their friends. Because I think at some point, every single one of them, including myself, like we've owned some sort of business. We've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's strange. I have the same thing. There's this bond and this friendship that develops over time,
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, So
Well, it's because like you develop, they call it like trauma bonding or whatever. Like the
Yeah.
military uses this. These guys go through these crazy things and they come out brothers.
Yep.
And obviously, it's not to that extent in the business. So by no means am I trying to water that down.
Right.
In comparison to owning your own business. However, like when they succeed and they're excited,
Yeah.
like there's nothing better than that feeling of like, you guys ran those ads and you were telling me how well they were performing. And I was just so excited for you guys. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's truly the key to success. And that's what everybody's worried about, whether it's video, SEO, any sort of marketing.
Yeah.
And it's that word that a lot of other people are afraid of is ROI.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on that. People come to us all the time. This is another thing that just drives me up a wall. You'll have these agencies and they'll be like, we'll 10x your business. We'll 5x your business. And it's like, unless that marketing team is working within the four walls of that business, that's insanely untrue.
Yeah.
So like I've had this conversation so many times. Well, what's my return on investment?
Yeah.
What I'm going to tell you is our job is to improve visibility.
Yeah.
And what the market bears is what the market bears.
Yeah.
And then also too, we were just talking about funnels earlier today.
Yes, we were. Funnel's a big buzzword.
Yeah, big. If you're a business owner,
You got to understand funnels.
you got to know what they are. So at the top of that funnel, like if you're looking at like that visibility aspect, that's fine. They find you, they know that they need your service, but then what happens, once they've, connected with that business, whether it's a request for service, whether it's a phone call, if they get there and your service is too expensive,
Yeah.
or you're a jerk, or you're not timely, whatever the case may be, like agencies can't control that.
No.
And so yeah, maybe like in the e-commerce space, like, can we help you sell more? Sure.
Yeah.
But like, okay, you take, this is an election year, election week. Across the board, we saw everything slow up
Oh, yeah.
because everyone was focused on the election.
Yeah.
And so, you want to make sure that you know what you're getting. And so that's the 3,000, like the 50-second reason why I don't have, salespeople.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it in person before and it just makes me nauseous.
Sure. I mean, we've been we have some partnerships with another company, and I'm trying to explain to the sales team how to sell video.
Yeah.
Because they're going out there and they're selling our videos, which is a great element of the partnership.
Sure.
But at some point, the process breaks down, and they will not know the ins and outs of the answers to those questions because they're always going to come up.
Yeah.
So just like when someone asks you how expensive is SEO, the factors of are you in New York City or Nashville make a
Yeah.
huge difference. And the same thing on a video commercial set or
Yeah.
any sort of video production. It's like, okay, how big of a production are we talking here?
Yep.
How fancy do you want it to be? And I mean, how much are you trying to accomplish within the shoot? Because if I need to bring another videographer, another camera operator, you got to
Yeah.
pay that camera operator.
Yeah.
And so that increases the cost. Are we talking a full day? Are we going to have to rent a studio with space? Do I need actors? Do I need someone in wardrobe?
Yeah.
All of those things make a difference. But what a lot of people see and hear is the word SEO. I can be found and discovered online, and I'll make more sales.
Yep.
Right? And the details kind of get slipped through.
Yep.
And then the same thing in the video world. They see these finished productions,
Yeah.
and they're like, how much could that possibly cost? And I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but most actors don't work for free.
Yeah.
They at least got to get fed if they're your friends.
Right.
And they're a great option, if you really need somebody to do some acting for you and they're up for it. I've had people reach out to family and friends
Yeah.
and showcase, in these commercials. Hey, have at it. But obviously you're going to get what you pay for
Yeah.
whenever you bring in more people.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going on a tangent there, but it's this simple idea that you can't quantify exactly, and a salesperson can't quantify exactly what it is. But you and I, because we know exactly what we charge for each individual thing,
Yeah.
and we have experience actually doing the thing,
Yeah.
we end up being full-time salespeople all the time.
Well, yeah, and also too, it's setting proper expectation, right? Like
Oh, that's a huge element.
it's huge because like you'll have these sales guys that are like, we'll 10x your business. You'll rank all across Nashville. You might rank across the world. Like they'll just tell you like whatever it is that gets you to say yes
Yeah.
to open up your wallet. That's what you're going to hear. This isn't for every agency,
Yeah.
but there's a good amount that do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, so recent client of mine,
Okay.
he, we figured out that he was working with an agency. I won't say who they are, just so I'm not in the mood for catching a lawsuit today, but
Allegedly.
allegedly. So they bamboozled this guy for 10 years. He thought his phone was ringing
Yeah. Because of them.
because of them.
Yeah.
Some real, me and you actually talked about this off air, like some real sleazeball stuff.
Yeah.
We figured out quickly that they had robbed this dude for the better half of it was over like $30,000. It was a tough pill for him to swallow. And so I looked at his rankings, which were non-existent, literally. And I said, okay, here's what's going to happen. We can fix this. But when you rank, this is in Hendersonville, Tennessee. So for those of you watching or listening, it's a suburb just
outside of Nashville.
yeah, just right. It's a beautiful place to be.
I don't hate it.
I love it. Yeah, we're in the same neighborhood. So I said, you're going to rank at best in like a 7-mile radius.
Okay.
And he goes, if I can own this neighborhood, it would triple, quadruple my business. And I was like, yeah. I was like, because if I'm standing in the parking lot, I can't find you. So yeah, I'd imagine that's going to only bump your numbers up.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't going to feed him the line that like, and where I want him to rank specifically is in the Google Map Pack.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're looking for product and service locally, that's where everyone's going because it has the reviews, the quick calls to action on mobile to call.
It's very user friendly.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things Google's ever done. And so anyway, I was like, I want you to rank in the map pack. That's the true objective for local search. And I said, at best, 7.5 miles. Now maybe he'll get a little bit past that, but somebody in Brentwood, which for those of you who aren't watching this, who are from Tennessee, that's 45-minute drive south.
It feels like forever.
It could be longer. But if I'm 45 minutes away, I'm not going to find that mechanic organically for that service.
Yeah.
They want to find mechanics that are in Brentwood if you're searching in Brentwood. If you're in Hendersonville,
Yeah, they want it to be 5 minutes away.
Right.
Ideally.
Proximity is another key piece to local SEO. So, yeah, crazy.
We definitely don't like people getting bamboozled and taken advantage of.
It drives me nuts.
And I think, so like plumber down the street wants to find customer down the street.
Yeah.
Or even what you just said sums it up too for SEO. If you guys need help with your search engine optimization, think of it like if people are standing in the parking lot and they can't figure out your business exists without reading your sign, then your discoverability is not great. And people pay big money for discovery.
Huge.
Like it is so important because so many people have great things that they do, products, services, whatever. Like they might be amazing at it.
Right.
But we live in a world where people are competing to even have that be seen.
Yeah.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit because we kind of ask everybody that comes on that we talk to about these two things. So the first thing is mentorship.
Okay.
Do you have mentorship in your business life, or do you have a group of people that you turn to when you need advice? What do you think about having a business mentor?
So I love mentorship.
Okay.
During my early years back, going back to the formal wear shop, I had two business mentors. One is with us. One, unfortunately, I was just talking about him this morning. Actually, he's no longer with us, and they were two fantastic business owners with two completely different ideologies.
Yeah.
And it was great. So I got both sides of the fence. So, during my infancy of entrepreneurship, they were there. But even as I've been doing this for so long, but I still have business mentorships. There's clients along the way that I envy. And where I'm like, I'll name drop him. I love this guy. He wouldn't mind if I said his name. So one of my favorite clients of all time was a company called Discovery Inspections. They're out of Fayetteville, Georgia.
Okay.
And they had an owner by the name of Gary Sloan. Gary recently sold that business.
Okay. Good for him.
For an undisclosed amount.
Congrats to the
But
fella.
Gary's living his best life right now.
There you go.
And I watched how Gary not just did business and how he grew this thing to be it's worth millions at this point, right?
Yeah.
This is in just, little Fayetteville, Georgia, And I watched how not only he grew his business, but how people looked up to him, how his staff interacted with him in the office. I was like, I want to be Gary.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
And so I got into this impasse where like we had grown so much that I was like, oh boy, like what's the next step?
Yeah. What do you do?
What do you do? Like we had always been this boutique agency and we kind of prided ourselves on that,
Right.
I was like, could we make this bigger? And I told him, I was like, the SEO department in particular,
Yeah.
that's mine. That's
Right. That's your baby.
That's my baby.
Yeah.
That's where all this was born out of. So like the strategy and the implementation, it's me. It's something I couldn't let go of.
Okay.
And Gary, he's quite the jokester. So he does this. He goes, I'm gonna tell you something. He goes, it's an old African proverb. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to get something useful or if it's actually going to be
If
like
he's going to mess with you.
Yeah. Because that's who he is. And he goes, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I was like, whoa. His ability to sum up my journey at that point was, we got here so fast because I put it on my back.
Yeah.
But if I wanted this to be bigger than what it was, which I truly wrestled with,
Yeah.
is you had to bring in more. You had to bring in you had to bring in a team of people, and so that's where more growth started to happen. And a lot of trial and error there. Didn't imagine it would become that big.
Yeah.
And so, but yes, mentorship. For anyone, if anyone is listening to this at any particular point, and I don't care how long you've been doing it for. I don't care if you're a brand new entrepreneur. I don't care if you've been doing it for 30 years. There's somebody out there who's doing something else a little bit better than what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to keep your ears up. I love mentorship.
One of the dudes that I'm in a networking group with, he said something that really just piqued my interest so much. And it was that he he made a few mistakes early on in his business. He's been in business, like doing businesses, being in entrepreneurship since he was 18.
Wow.
So like he knew he wasn't going to college, or maybe he did afterwards and got a business degree. I can't remember the specifics, but like this dude has always been doing entrepreneurial stuff.
Really?
And after a few mistakes, he was like, I'm not going to make those mistakes anymore. I'm setting up an advisory board. And it's like, the way I understood his advisory board was not that they necessarily have shares within his business and therefore they're on the advisory board, but he meets with this group of individuals, either collectively or as individuals when they can't meet together collectively on a Zoom call or in person or whatever.
Sure.
And he runs his ideas by them.
That's so cool.
And he just keeps that consistent because those are the 5 people that he trusts with his business.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more of the collective suit.
Yeah.
So I definitely value mentorship a lot, but I pull mentorship from all of the people around me, and I pick the best parts of them, I think, and I take my most negative qualities and I do whatever I want anyways.
Yeah.
But you learn so much from being around people.
Yeah.
So and what another person on the show had talked about was he's kind of moved from in-person mentorship to he reads a lot.
Sure.
So he reads a lot of books.
Yeah.
A lot of authors. There's a lot of different things that he follows, and a lot of influences in life. We'll give him a book and say, hey, this is interesting, and read it.
Yep.
Is there anything that you believe business owners or people out there must absolutely read?
Oh, God. Yeah. And, boy, this is so funny because this started the whole journey, and it was from my first business mentor, ironically enough.
Okay.
Like I said, I grew up super poor. And I didn't understand like how financial institutions work. I didn't know what credit was in my early 20s. Like it's embarrassing to say, but like I didn't. My mom didn't know anything. My dad didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how people acquired things. Like I just thought you bought everything with cash. You just worked really hard. So anyway, he had a big learning curve with me, and he took me under his wing. And the first book he recommended, and I do this all the time, it drives my wife nuts. I sound like a broken record every time I talk to a new entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you don't even have to be an entrepreneur. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
It's
read it, loved it.
Loved it. So good.
So that's the one you recommend.
Yep, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I also recommend The Millionaire Next Door.
Okay.
In my opinion, you don't have to read the whole thing. Get through I can't remember. It's like the first 3 chapters.
Okay.
You'll get the gist. The third one, and it's not business related. Man's Search for Meaning. I think there's more than just running your business. It's who you are and how you drive your passion. And that book has always kind of been a driver for me. And so, if I had to give 3 books, that's my 3 books.
Yeah, we'll put those in the description. Some links to those, so that way they're easy to find. And those are always like really great tools for people to do continued learning. Audiobook, Kindle, whatever your preference is. You got to consume more knowledge as much as possible.
Yeah, and spoiler alert: if Man's Search for Meaning has, as I said, has nothing to do with business. It has nothing to do with finance. I just think that there's some powerful ideology in there that if you really read into it, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It focuses on drive and purpose. And I think any successful entrepreneur has to have that.
Yeah.
Because you can get lost in the sauce, trying to do too much at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
All right, so to give it like kind of a general recap, started out a bridal store, right?
Yeah.
Looked around you, you saw a bunch of businesses that had failed and wondered how to help your business and those other small businesses.
And not be broke.
Yeah, not be broke. That's a big element. And your big old heart, you end up helping all these businesses get discoverability.
Yeah.
You help customer A find plumber A in in your neighborhood. But do you service other like businesses outside of the Nashville area as well?
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't matter their location.
Oh yeah.
If they call you,
we have clients coast to coast.
Okay, because we talked a lot about Nashville, so I want to make sure that they know like
Weirdly enough, so that's what happened. It started in Nashville, but like the network, we got results for people, and then like it just grew into other areas. You know, someone knew somebody who had a business in Atlanta. You know, give them a call. And yeah, we're literally we're on all time zones in the lower 48 right now. So yeah.
Okay, and are we still at SEONOW.io, or can people go to the .com?
Oh yeah. Oh, I get to drop it.
This is the opportunity. Name drop.
I bought the .com.
There you go.
So when I first started, there was an enormous price tag, as you'd imagine, on a 6-letter .com that involved SEO. My 2023 gift to myself was I bought the .com.
There you go.
And that was one of those like cool shining moments where I was like, whoa,
Things are changing.
yeah. And the service didn't change. The people didn't change. Our rankings.
Website got, what would you call it, a facelift? I mean,
Yeah,
you redesigned it. I don't know. It looked good before, so it didn't need a facelift. But
we decided to, we wanted to polish it
give
up
it
a
some
little
snazz.
bit. Yeah, it was good.
And that's up and fully functional now.
Oh yeah, it has been.
.com.
Yep. And so it was one of those things where even I was nervous, because we have such great rankings in Nashville.
Yeah.
Where I was like, we're doing a migration and like, the things that make SEO unstable at times. And I'm like, oh man, it was a good experience because we're experts at this.
Yeah.
And even being the experts, I was still nervous about that migration and what it would do.
Yeah.
And it helped remind me that this is what clients are going through too, because they're completely helpless.
That's big. That's a big element.
It was a good look in the mirror. I was like, don't forget like that sinking gut feeling that you have about your brand and its visibility.
Yes.
That's what people are coming to you for.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah.
Oh my! I sympathize
great.
with that so much right now because I've been trying to be a better customer to myself.
Right.
I've been terrible. And I think most production companies, most people, unless they have someone that's like dedicated to this,
Yeah.
like we manage other people's social media accounts.
Yeah.
All the time. And
Yeah.
we're on time and we get the content done. And it's like, it's what we do. We're professionals at it.
Yeah.
And then I make my own content and I'm like, no, I sounded stupid. But this is what people are going through whenever you're filming stuff for them. This is what's in their head. And you're sitting on the other side of that. What are you talking about? That sounded great. Like, it's going to look wonderful.
We did it right before the shoot. I was like flipping through your phone, like, don't watch that one. I was like, this looks
I did say that.
Yeah. I was like, this looks grett.
I did say that.
It looked awesome.
Yeah, we get self-conscious about stuff.
Well, it's if you can't do it for yourself,
Right.
can you do it for others? And we talked about this. Like, my best weapon in Nashville is someone's like, "How good are you at SEO?" I'm like, "Well, how about you look up SEO company in Nashville and see who ranks."
See who ranks first.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I was
Right.
like,
And we pride ourselves on like trying to make people on the ability to make people feel very comfortable in front of the camera because we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be fun. And luckily our journey started with being in front of the camera, like me personally, because we had that board game channel. We still do stuff in the board gaming industry, but like I knew what it was like to sit in front of the camera, and I know how patient I had to be with myself because I could be kicking myself like, why is this taking me so long?
Yep.
And like people are doing it half the time. I was getting through my lines or reading my script, and I'm like, oh, you you have no idea how great you're doing.
Yeah.
And then there are other people that like they get on the camera, and I'm infuriated with how easily it comes to them and they act like a normal person.
Yeah.
And it's like behind the camera, I'm 100% a normal guy.
Yeah.
And like, I think this is great and we're having fun. Get in front of the camera and I'm like, what do I, hands? How do I do? I say words in ways that I've never said words before. And so, it is important to know, like your customers to know, like they're not alone.
Yeah.
We're going through the same things that they're going through within our businesses.
I tell them
It's a great lesson.
I tell them it's like a marriage. It really is because you have now entrusted us to make sure that your business grows.
Yeah.
And that is it's a huge responsibility.
Because they make their living from what they do.
You just hit it right on the head. This is what I tell this is more of an internal thing over at SEO now.
Okay.
But I've had this conversation before where it's like, it's not just SEO. It's not just AdWords. It's not just a website. A majority of these businesses, this is their life's work. This is how they pay their bills. It's the legacy that they'll leave behind.
Yeah.
It has much further ramifications than just, do I rank online? Like, it can be the difference between a business growing or, on the opposite end of the spectrum, going under.
Yeah.
And so, like, what we do is insanely important because it's not just get them to rank. We're giving businesses the opportunity to either stabilize or grow.
Right.
And so I think when you look at it through those lenses, it makes all the difference. Your efforts, like, are tenfold,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think just that and being honest and transparent with clients. I mean, I've had clients before where I'm like, you've hit the pinnacle. You've hit the apex. There's nothing left here for you.
Right.
Let's shift our focus into something else that can bring revenue in.
Oh, it's got to be a great feeling too.
It's pretty cool.
Well, I think that about sums it up for today.
Oh, cool.
There's 100 more SEO questions that we could probably ask you and themes. We try to keep our stories that scale episodes kind of in a narrow lanes because we could go all over the place.
Yeah.
But I will say this. If you're watching this episode and you do have questions, please put them in the comments.
Yeah.
Zach would be happy to reach out and talk to you about those questions, about those issues.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about video or if you just liked watching us yap for an hour, then don't be a punk. Like, follow, subscribe, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can go and look up Zach's business on SEONOW.com.
That's right.
And he'd be happy to talk with you about your SEO needs for your business. And maybe that's another, I was going to ask that question today, but we will save that. So prelude for next time. Okay, we're going to be talking about the topic of who needs SEO, who's right for it.
Oh, boy, that's a whole episode by itself.
That's a whole episode.
That's a whole-
I'm glad I saved it for another time.
Good call.
But man, as always, like, it's always good to see you because we're friends and we hang out.
It's always
but
good.
it's fun to film stuff with you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I truly appreciate being here, given the opportunity, and I know the quality of work that you do, so I'm just over the moon to see what this looks like. What the end product looks like.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only thing I was really nervous about. I was like, man, I don't want to mess anything up, for like,
For me?
Yeah, for you.
In the edit?
Yeah, exactly.
This is for fun, This is not like, this ain't going on the business page. This is my personal passion and joy. And so I love the opportunity to be able to get to pursue these topics and these ideas because they mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been a pleasure.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. I appreciate you all watching or listening.
Are they
whichever one
or both? Right.
Well, we got the video, we got the audio, we got
lots
it all.
Lots of
We could be doing
visibility.
it, and we're seriously ending now.